Megan Hayes hadn't planned on kissing anyone at midnight. In fact, she hadn't planned on much at all for this New Year's Eve, other than surviving it with her dignity intact and a glass of overpriced champagne in hand. She was tired of the drama, tired of the pressure, tired of being the reliable, put-together version of herself that everyone at Catalyst Media expected. After a year filled with marketing campaigns that never ended, a breakup with someone she had almost convinced herself was the one, and just enough therapy to know she was very much not okay, Megan had declared December 31st a night of not thinking. Just vibes. Just noise. Just strangers. She wore a sleek black jumpsuit she'd bought on a whim during a sale she couldn't afford, and red lipstick she hadn't had the nerve to wear since July. The bar was dim, moody, and full of people who looked better lit than she felt. Her best friend Emma had bailed last minute due to a flu that may or may not have been wine-induced, and Megan had considered going home. But something kept her there, nursing her third whiskey sour and people watching like it was a full-time job. It was 11:55 p.m. when the stranger appeared. She didn't just walk into Megan's peripheral vision, she commanded it. Tall, poised, and infuriatingly elegant, she moved through the bar like she wasn't a part of it. Like she owned it. The kind of woman who didn't check her phone because everyone else was already looking at her. She had dark hair pulled into a perfect bun, a long black dress that shimmered just enough to be mysterious, and a scent Megan could only describe as rich and ruinous. She slid onto the bar stool next to Megan without a word, ordering something neat and strong with a voice that was low, crisp, and British. Of course she was British. Megan didn't mean to stare, but the woman turned to her, lips curved into the beginning of a smirk. "You look like you just lost a bet." Megan blinked. "I feel like I did." The woman chuckled. "It was warm and dangerous. Bad year." "The worst," Megan said, raising her glass. "And you?" The woman clinked her glass softly against Megan's. "Let's call it educational." There were no introductions. No last names. No occupations. Just that shared, unsaid thing. Two women who didn't want to explain themselves to anyone tonight. Megan had no idea who she was talking to, and she liked it that way. It gave her permission to be someone braver than usual. Someone who flirted back when a stranger let her gaze linger too long. Someone who leaned in a little closer when their arms brushed and didn't pull away. "Are you hiding from someone?" Megan asked, as the woman cast a glance over her shoulder. "I might be," she replied cryptically. "Does that bother you?" Megan's pulse jumped. "Only if you're married." A slow smile. "Divorced. Recently. Does that bother you?" Megan leaned in, feeling the champagne buzz hit her spine. "Only if you're emotionally available." That made the woman laugh again, and Megan felt herself relax for the first time in weeks. There was something intoxicating about not knowing, about not having to know. They talked about nonsense, dogs, karaoke disasters, favorite takeout food, and every second brought them closer. The air around them thickened, heavier with each accidental touch. Megan didn't know her name, but she knew the way she looked at her when she smiled, and that felt more important right now. Then the countdown began. 10. The music swelled. The crowd started shouting, bodies pressing together in anticipation.
9.
The woman's eyes locked on Megan's. There was a flicker there. Hesitation?
What? 8.
7. They both stood now, facing each other. Megan could feel her heart pounding.
6.
The woman's hand brushed hers, deliberate.
5.
Someone bumped into them, but they didn't look away.
4.
The crowd's energy was reaching a fever pitch. 3. The stranger leaned in, her breath warm against Megan's cheek.
2.
"Happy New Year, mystery girl," she whispered.
1.
Megan didn't think. She just kissed her. It wasn't soft or tentative or hesitant. It was a reckless, magnetic, urgent kind of kiss, the kind that made Megan forget where she was and what day it was. The woman's lips were impossibly soft, her hands finding Megan's waist like they belonged there. Time fractured. The world spun. The music faded. Everything was fireworks behind her eyelids and the taste of whiskey and want. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, the woman touched Megan's cheek and whispered, That was incredible. And then just like that, she was gone. Vanished into the crowd, leaving only a ghost of perfume and confusion behind. Megan didn't move for a full minute. She stood there, stunned, lips tingling, 1,000 questions on her tongue, and no one to answer them. She didn't even know her name. She didn't even know if she would ever see her again. But something inside her had shifted, subtly, irreversibly. The rest of the night passed in a blur of noise and glitter. Megan went home alone, half-dazed, replaying that kiss on a loop like a song she couldn't stop humming. It was supposed to be a moment, a spark, a beautiful, strange accident. But come Monday morning, when she walked into the office for the first all-hands meeting of the year and saw her standing at the front of the room in a slate-gray suit with calm authority and a faint smirk that said everything and nothing at all, Megan's stomach dropped straight through the floor. Her name was Helena Morrison, and she was the new CEO of Catalyst Media. Megan had experienced awkward moments at work before, bad Zoom backgrounds, mistaking someone's wife for their sister. That one time she sent a meme about quitting to the wrong Slack channel, but nothing compared to walking into a room and realizing that the woman she kissed like her life depended on it 3 nights ago was now her new boss. She felt it before she saw it. A stillness in the room, an energy shift. Then came the voice, low, composed, that same unmistakable British edge, and Megan's stomach twisted itself into a Mobius strip. Helena Morrison, in a tailored gray suit, heels sharp enough to stab, and a presence that made everyone sit up straighter. Megan sat in the back of the conference room, gripping her iced coffee like it could save her soul, and prayed to every queer goddess in the universe that Helena wouldn't recognize her. Or, at least, pretend not to. That hope lasted exactly 3 seconds. Because Helena's gaze did sweep the room, and when it landed on Megan, it didn't falter. It didn't panic. It didn't blink. Her expression didn't change, but Megan caught the tiniest shift in her jaw, a brief tightening of her grip on the podium. It was subtle, but it was there. Helena remembered, and she was pretending not to. The meeting moved on in a blur of new initiatives, department restructuring, and future strategy buzzwords that usually made Megan roll her eyes. But she wasn't listening. She couldn't. Her pulse was in her ears, and her brain was still stuck on Helena's voice, saying that was incredible before disappearing into the crowd like a fever dream. By the end of the meeting, Megan had convinced herself she was going to get fired. Not for kissing her boss. Technically that had happened before she was her boss, but for existing while having seen Helena Morrison's mouth up close. She tried to bolt after the meeting, but fate was a petty bitch. Megan Hayes, Helena said just as Megan was halfway through the door. The voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp and perfectly clear. Megan turned slowly. Yes, I'd like to speak with you. My office.
Now.
Death by embarrassment, Megan thought. She followed Helena upstairs, heart hammering. The moment the office door shut behind them, Megan opened her mouth to say, I didn't know who you were or we were strangers, I swear, but Helena held up a hand.
Don't, she said.
We're not going to talk about it. Megan blinked. We're not. Helena shook her head, already walking to her desk, composed as ever. It didn't happen. It was a moment between 2 strangers. That's all. A pretty intense moment, Megan muttered before she could stop herself. Helena looked at her. There was a flicker, amusement? Frustration?
Desire?
Megan couldn't tell. Do you understand me, Ms. Hayes? Megan, who was 95% sure her insides were melting, nodded. Crystal. Good. Because I don't mix personal and professional. Ever. You'll continue doing your job, and I'll continue doing mine. Let's keep it clean.
Clean. Right.
Like that kiss had been clean. Megan left Helena's office in a daze, trying not to think about how her knees had almost buckled when Helena called her Ms. Hayes. For the rest of the week, they barely spoke. Helena was cool, composed, professional to a fault. But that didn't stop Megan from noticing things. Like the way Helena avoided looking directly at her in meetings. Or how she always left the room just a little too fast when Megan entered it. It was ridiculous.
And hot.
And driving her insane. Then came Friday afternoon, when Samir from HR announced they'd been selected to lead a new campaign together, Something big, high profile, meant to redefine Catalyst's creative identity under new leadership. Of course. Of course Megan had to be the lead marketing manager on that campaign. And, of course, Helena insisted on being personally involved. Great, Megan said, trying not to sound like she wanted to scream into a pillow. Can't wait.
You'll have to, Samir said.
First strategy meetings Monday. But Helena suggested you two use the weekend to get aligned on tone and direction. She said she wants chemistry. Megan nearly choked.
Chemistry. Right.
That wouldn't be a problem. Megan thought Helena would call or send an email. Instead, she texted. A text. From her personal number. Megan stared at it for a full 5 minutes.
Hi.
I know this is unorthodox, but there's an art exhibit at the MCA tomorrow. It's a retrospective on female artists in advertising. Thought it might inspire some ideas. Want to join me? It wasn't a command. It wasn't even phrased like a work obligation. It was an invitation. The word join made her stomach flutter. Megan typed back before she could overthink it.
Sure.
What time? Saturday arrived gray and cold, but Megan didn't care. She wore her favorite coat, a scarf she stole from an ex, and her best perfume. When she saw Helena waiting by the entrance of the museum, hands in her pockets, face tilted up at the sky like she was trying to memorize the shape of winter, Megan's breath caught in her throat. Helena smiled when she saw her. A real smile.
Soft. Human.
Devastating. They walked through the exhibit slowly, surrounded by vintage posters and commercial art that had defined eras. Megan tried to focus, but all she could think about was how close Helena stood beside her, how their arms occasionally brushed, how they whispered comments about the absurdity of 1950s housewife ads and laughed like they'd done it 100 times. This one, Helena said at one point, stopping in front of a piece that featured a woman in a power suit stepping on a stack of magazines. It's dramatic, but I like the message. Megan looked at her. A woman in charge? Helena glanced down at her, smirking. Revolutionary, I know. They left the museum just as the sun began to set. Megan didn't want it to end. Neither, apparently, did Helena. There's a coffee shop nearby that does a ridiculous cinnamon latte. Care to walk a bit? Megan hesitated. This is still about the campaign, right? Helena's eyes sparkled. Of course. Purely professional cinnamon lattes. Megan laughed, and they walked, shoulders bumping, conversation growing more relaxed. It was subtle, but the shift was there, something cracking beneath Helena's carefully constructed distance. At the cafe, they sat in a quiet corner. Helena took off her gloves, revealing slender fingers and a ring-tan line. Megan noticed. Helena noticed her noticing. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. It didn't escalate. It didn't need to. The tension between them was simmering, slow and undeniable. They talked until the coffee cups were empty and the world outside was dark. Helena checked her phone, sighed, then looked at Megan. This can't get complicated, she said softly. Megan swallowed. Too late. Megan Hayes didn't know which was worse. Sitting across from Helena Morrison in a glass-walled conference room pretending not to remember the way her lips tasted, or reading an email from HR that started with the words, "You've both been selected to attend the annual Creative Leadership Conference in Milwaukee." Milwaukee. In January. With Helena. For 3 days. Of course it's Milwaukee, Megan muttered to herself as she sipped her fourth coffee of the morning and stared blankly at the packing list attached to the itinerary. Love what you've seen so far and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. Because when I think romantic, unresolved sexual tension, I definitely think Wisconsin in the dead of winter. Her sarcasm was lost on the email, but not on Helena, who just so happened to appear at her desk 10 seconds later, like some kind of well-dressed omen. "Ms. Hayes," she said, calm as ever, arms crossed, trench coat perfect. "Ready for our glamorous adventure?" Megan blinked up at her, face innocent. "Is this the part where we go undercover as a married couple to take down a marketing cartel?" Helena raised a single eyebrow. "No." But I do expect you to share stage with me at the keynote panel, so let's keep the theatrics to a minimum until then. So no fake wedding rings? Tempting, but no. Megan smirked. Well, if you ever change your mind, I make a mean fake spouse. Helena tilted her head, gaze lingering a second too long. I'm sure you do. The car ride to Milwaukee was mercifully short and filled with polite silence, save for Megan's passive-aggressive Spotify playlist titled CEO Crush Vibes that she definitely played on purpose. The hotel was modern and sleek, all brushed metal and warm lighting, the kind of place that screamed business casual affair. Megan approached the front desk while Helena handled the logistics, only to hear something that made her blink twice. There's been a mix-up, the receptionist said, tapping at her keyboard with increasing concern. It looks like the system combined your bookings into a single suite. 2 names, 1 room. Helena, who had just returned with a schedule in hand, paused. Megan looked at her, eyes wide with faux shock. Oh no, a single suite. How ever will we survive? Helena inhaled slowly. We'll request a change. It's a sold-out weekend. The receptionist chimed in with a practiced wince. Big dental conference on the same floor. All rooms are booked. Megan tried not to laugh. A dental conference. This was divine comedy. Helena hesitated, then turned to Megan. Are you comfortable sharing a space? Megan gave her a look. With you? Always. But full disclosure, I snore when I've had wine. Also, I sleep in vintage band tees and questionable underwear. Duly noted, Helena said without blinking. I prefer silence and firm pillows. And I wake up at 5. This is already starting to sound like foreplay. Ms. Hayes, Helena warned, but the corner of her mouth twitched. The suite was spacious, but not that spacious. 1 large bed, 1 pull-out couch, and a window with a view of downtown that neither of them acknowledged because they were too busy pretending not to be freaking out. I'll take the couch, Helena said immediately, dropping her bag beside it. Megan flopped onto the bed dramatically. Suit yourself. I'll just enjoy this luxury all alone like the powerful lesbian protagonist I was born to be. Helena sat down at the desk, opened her laptop, and sighed. Can we focus on the panel prep? Sure, Megan said, spinning around to face her upside down. Let's talk synergy, disruption, vertical engagement, whatever buzzword makes you feel alive. Helena didn't look up. You're impossible. And yet here we are, sharing a hotel room. Fate is hilarious. Hours passed in a semi-productive blur. They ordered room service, argued over branding approaches, and accidentally touched hands reaching for the same stylus, twice. Neither mentioned it. Later that night, Megan brushed her teeth while Helena changed in the bathroom. When Helena emerged in silk pajama pants and a tank top that revealed unfairly toned arms, Megan nearly dropped her toothbrush. Didn't realize CEOs came with gym memberships included, she mumbled through foam. Didn't realize marketing managers had no filter after 10 p.m., Helena shot back, climbing into the couch bed with grace only someone very aware of being watched could manage. Lights off. Silence. Tension. Then, you really don't remember my name from the bar, do you? Helena asked, voice low. Megan blinked into the darkness. You never told me. I didn't. Nope. You were too busy looking mysterious and ruining my ability to function like a normal adult. A pause. Then, it's Helena. Megan smirked in the dark. Yeah. I figured that out Monday morning when you emotionally body-slammed me with a corporate speech and flawless cheekbones. Silence again. Then, you're not what I expected. Megan rolled over to face her voice. Neither are you. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Helena exhaled. We shouldn't let that night affect this. Too late, Megan whispered. And just like that, the room was full of electricity again. Not touch, not kiss, not yet. But something was happening. Something loud and unspoken. And it was only getting harder to ignore. Megan was, by her own admission, a bit of a mess. Or, at least, that's how she felt as she stood in the hotel bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The conference was officially over, the panel a success, and yet here she was, hyper-aware of every moment she'd spent within 5 feet of Helena Morrison. Every word, every laugh, every glance that lasted a second too long. It wasn't even the fact that she had kissed the woman months ago. No, it was the fact that now, standing beside her in some sterile hotel suite in Milwaukee, Megan wasn't sure she could ever be in the same room with Helena without her heart skipping a beat. The woman was a puzzle. Smart, beautiful, professional, aloof. But Megan had seen a side of her today. She'd caught that flicker of warmth when Helena had spoken on stage, the slight smile when Megan had made a sarcastic comment about her obsession with data. She wasn't just a corporate machine. She wasn't just the CEO. There was something underneath it all, and Megan was dying to know what it was. Of course, she wouldn't admit any of that out loud. She was too busy putting on her "I'm totally fine" face as they walked back to the hotel from the final day's events. The night was cold, and there was a biting chill in the air that made Megan want to curl up in a blanket with wine and a trashy rom-com. Instead, they both entered the elevator in silence, side by side but separated by the invisible, ever-growing distance between them. As the elevator doors slid shut, Megan couldn't help but glance at Helena out of the corner of her eye. Helena, as usual, looked composed, collected. But there was something about her tonight, something in her posture, the way her jaw was set, the tension in her shoulders, that made Megan itch to ask the question she had been avoiding for days. "You good?" Megan said finally, breaking the silence, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Helena's gaze flicked to her. "I'm fine." "Why?" "You look like you're about to break into a TED Talk or something," Megan teased, crossing her arms. "Just curious. You've been holding something back all day. Is it that bad being around me?" "It's not you," Helena said, her voice quiet but firm. "It's everything. The pressure. The expectations. The way you don't let me breathe. The way you make me feel things I shouldn't." She didn't say, but Megan heard it, and it hit her like a slap to the chest. The elevator pinged as it arrived at their floor, and they stepped out in unison, the silence stretching out between them once again. "Look," Megan said, trying to lighten the mood, "if you want me to stop cracking jokes, just say the word. I'll keep my sarcasm to myself. I'm flexible like that." Helena didn't laugh, but the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. "You don't need to change," she said quietly. She stopped herself, her hand brushing the door handle of her room. Megan could feel the weight of her words, heavy and unfinished. Without really thinking about it, Megan stepped forward. "Just what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, in a sudden shift, Helena turned to her. "Just let's talk."
"Can we do that?"
"Without whatever it is we keep dancing around." Megan swallowed, the words catching in her throat. She nodded, not trusting her voice.
"Yeah,
"Sure. Talk." Helena opened the door to her room and stepped inside. Megan hesitated before following. They both dropped their coats and bags by the door. The lights were dim, and the room felt impossibly small for all the unsaid things between them. "I'm not good at this," Helena admitted, pacing a few steps before turning to face Megan.
"At this."
"At being around people and pretending things don't matter when they do." Megan raised an eyebrow. "At being human?" Helena's lips quirked slightly. "Something like that." Megan's heart started to beat louder. The conversation, the way they spoke to each other, it felt too intimate for just a professional encounter. But they were here in this room, together, alone. And maybe it was the exhaustion from the trip or the weight of everything left unsaid, but suddenly, it felt like the space between them was too small. "You're not exactly easy to forget, you know," Megan said, crossing the room slowly, her voice lighter than it felt. "That kiss." "Megan," Helena cut in, her voice sharp. "We're not." No, Megan said quickly, holding up her hands in mock surrender. "I'm not saying we should talk about it. I'm just saying you don't get to just walk away from that." She stepped closer, the words a little too daring, even for her. "I'm sorry, did I break your CEO composure? Did I ruin the whole don't mix personal with professional thing?" Helena's eyes flashed, but there was something darker, something deeper in her gaze. It wasn't anger. It was something harder to define. You don't make this easy, she said, voice tight. Megan took another step, closing the gap between them. Her heart was pounding in her chest. Maybe I don't want to make it easy. And before she could stop herself, she reached up, her fingers brushing the side of Helena's face, just enough to make her flinch.
A breath.
Then, in one swift movement, Helena's hands shot out, pushing her back against the wall. Megan's breath hitched. She was pressed against the cold surface, unable to move, caught between Helena and the wall. Their eyes locked. You're playing with fire, Megan, Helena said, her voice low, breath coming fast. Isn't that what you want? Megan replied, her words barely a whisper. Maybe I've always wanted to. The tension in the room was palpable. And then, in an almost violent release, Helena leaned in, her lips crashing against Megan's. It was nothing like their first kiss. This one was rougher, desperate, heated. There was no hesitation, no games. Just two people who couldn't pretend any longer. Their bodies pressed closer, and Megan could feel every inch of Helena's heat, every ounce of her struggle. It wasn't about passion, it was about breaking down the walls between them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless and wide-eyed, the room was silent except for the sound of their racing hearts. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Neither of them moved. But it didn't matter. They both knew. There was no going back now. Megan didn't sleep that night. Not because the hotel bed was uncomfortable. It was actually obscenely soft, like it had been engineered by angels with degrees in luxury, but because every time she closed her eyes, she felt Helena's mouth on hers again, her hands firm against Megan's sides, her breath shaky and warm against her skin. The kiss had been impulsive, yes, but it hadn't been careless. It had felt like years of tension packed into a single desperate act, like they'd both reached a breaking point at the exact same time. Megan hadn't expected to feel like she'd been dropped into a romantic thriller set in a Marriott suite in Wisconsin, but here she was. When she emerged from the bathroom the next morning, dressed and freshly caffeinated, Helena was already standing by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the snow-covered city like it had personally offended her. Megan cleared her throat. Sleep okay? Or did you spend the night planning how to fire me without triggering an HR lawsuit? Helena turned slowly, her expression unreadable. We should forget it happened. Megan stared at her. Seriously? It was a moment, Helena said evenly. A moment that shouldn't have happened. It's done. Right, Megan said, grabbing her bag. Because people kiss like that all the time and then just go back to scheduling spreadsheets and pretending they haven't seen each other half naked. Helena's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Megan crossed the room, stopping just in front of her. You keep trying to put this back in a box, but it doesn't fit. And neither do you. Megan. Her name on Helena's lips sounded like both a warning and a plea. Forget I said anything, Megan muttered, turning and heading for the door before she said something she couldn't take back. The drive back to Chicago was almost offensively quiet. Megan kept her headphones in the whole time, playing sarcastic pop songs with passive-aggressive lyrics that only she could hear. Helena didn't say a word. Not about the kiss. Not about the project. Not about anything. She just drove with the focus of someone escaping a crime scene. When they got back to the office on Monday, everything felt different. The walls looked the same, the coffee tasted like corporate regret, and people walked around with their usual too-busy-to-breathe expressions. But Megan's world had shifted. Helena was her boss. But she had also kissed her.
Twice.
And Megan couldn't pretend that the way Helena looked at her in that hotel room meant nothing. The campaign launch was in full swing, which meant long hours, tight deadlines, and constant contact with Helena. They texted constantly, some work, some not. They had meetings where Helena tried to act like nothing had changed and Megan tried to act like she wasn't watching her every move. The more Helena tried to keep things professional, the more Megan pushed. Not directly, but in the way she flirted through sarcasm, the way she tossed casual remarks laced with meaning like grenades. If I redesign this deck again, I'm going to charge by the heartbreak, Megan said one afternoon, sliding a new version across the table. Good, Helena replied without looking up. I'll pay you in unresolved sexual tension. Megan blinked. Helena glanced up, expression maddeningly neutral. Joking. Obviously. Megan leaned back in her chair, eyebrows raised.
Wow.
Did the Ice Queen just make a joke about sexual tension? I think I need to lie down. Helena didn't respond, but there was the ghost of a smile at the corner of her mouth. It was always like that now. A push, a pull. A game no one had agreed to play, but both kept returning to. Then came Thursday. Helena called Megan into her office to review the pitch deck for the upcoming client presentation. Megan walked in, closed the door, and leaned against it with theatrical flair. You rang, Your Majesty? Helena didn't even look up from her screen. Don't make me regret this. Regret what? Asking me here, or kissing me in a hotel room like we were in a dramatic sapphic reboot of Suits. Helena paused, then slowly looked up, her eyes sharp. You're impossible. You're in denial. Silence. Heavy.
Tense.
Megan took a step forward. You think if you just ignore it, it'll go away. But I'm not going anywhere. And this, whatever this is between us, isn't going away either. You're a distraction, Helena said quietly. Megan froze. That hurt more than she expected.
Wow.
Okay. But Helena stood now, moving around the desk until she was just a few feet away. You're a distraction, she repeated softer. And I haven't been distracted in years. I've worked too hard to get here, and I can't afford to lose control. Megan's voice was steady, even if her heart was a mess. Then don't lose control. Just admit you want to see where this goes. I don't know if I can. Then let me. The air between them crackled. But before either of them could say more, someone knocked on the door.
Helena stepped back, fast.
Come in. Samir poked his head in. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Just need a quick signature. Megan slipped out as fast as she could. She needed air. She needed distance. She needed anything that wasn't Helena's eyes locked on hers like they were 2 seconds away from doing something wildly inappropriate again. That night, back at home, Megan stood in her kitchen staring at her wine bottle like it might offer clarity. Her phone buzzed. One new message. We should talk. Tomorrow after work. My place. Not work-related. HM. Megan stared at the screen, heart skipping. Not work-related. She typed one word back.
Yes.
Megan wasn't nervous. That's what she kept telling herself as she stood outside Helena Morrison's apartment door, holding a bottle of wine that she wasn't sure was impressive enough for a CEO but had a cute label and cost more than her last night out. She knocked twice. Lightly.
Casually.
Like this was any other Friday night, and she wasn't about to enter the private space of the woman who made her brain short-circuit and her sarcasm go into overdrive. The door opened, and there she was, Helena, barefoot, hair down, wearing a loose black sweater and jeans that somehow made her look both completely relaxed and completely devastating. Megan blinked.
Wow.
So, this is what CEOs look like off-duty. I thought you slept in blazers. Helena arched an eyebrow. Only on weekends. Megan stepped inside. The apartment was warm, minimal, and stylish in that perfectly curated way that screamed, I have my life together, and you don't. Clean lines, soft lighting, shelves lined with books and framed black and white photographs. There was even jazz playing softly in the background, like Helena had consulted a lifestyle magazine before opening the door. Let me guess, Megan said, wandering toward the bookshelves. You alphabetize by author, you have a favorite espresso spoon, and your spice rack is color-coordinated. 2 out of 3, Helena replied, taking the wine from her and heading toward the kitchen. I keep the spoon in a drawer. I'm not a monster. Megan smiled despite herself. Good. I was starting to think you might actually be a robot sent to teach me about discipline and excellent posture. You're not entirely wrong. Helena returned with 2 glasses, pouring with that same effortless precision she did everything else with. Megan accepted hers and held it up. To whatever this is. Undefined territory, Helena said, clinking their glasses.
Cheers.
They settled onto the sofa, and for a moment, neither of them said anything. Megan sipped her wine, trying not to notice how close Helena was or how the smell of her shampoo was going to haunt her dreams. "So," Megan said, finally breaking the silence. "Is this the part where you interrogate me about my intentions with your dignity?" "No," Helena replied, folding one leg under the other. "This is the part where I try to figure out why I can't stop thinking about you." Megan blinked. "Oh, and before you make a joke about how unforgettable your lips are, don't." Megan raised a brow. "You're no fun. You're trouble. You kissed me back. I shouldn't have. But you did." Helena sighed, leaning her head against the back of the couch. "I don't know what I'm doing." "You're a CEO," Megan said, turning slightly to face her. "You make decisions for a living, not ones that involve you." Megan studied her face. The vulnerability was real. So was the struggle. For all her control and composure, Helena was clearly fighting something bigger than protocol or professionalism. "Okay," Megan said softly. "Then let's not figure it out right now. No pressure. No expectations. We sit, we drink wine, and maybe we talk like two people who met in a bar and kissed before they knew each other's names." Helena's eyes flicked to hers. "That's simple." "It can be. Even if we're still co-workers on Monday?" "Especially then," Megan smirked. "Because I fully plan on stealing your parking spot at least once before this project ends." That earned her a laugh. A real one. Low, warm, completely unguarded. And just like that, the air shifted. They weren't boss and employee anymore. They were Megan and Helena. Two women sitting too close on a sofa, trying too hard not to fall into something they couldn't name. Megan reached out and brushed a loose strand of hair from Helena's face. The contact was light, tentative, but Helena didn't move away. "You keep saying we shouldn't," Megan whispered. "But you keep letting me get closer." Helena didn't answer. She just looked at her, gaze intense, unreadable. Megan leaned in, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met again, and this time, it wasn't rushed or desperate. It was slow, deliberate, full of everything they hadn't said. Helena's hand found Megan's shoulder, then slid to the back of her neck, pulling her in with more urgency. Megan responded in kind, deepening the kiss as her hand settled on Helena's waist. The world narrowed. The kiss grew hungrier, needier, and in a sudden motion, Helena stood, pulling Megan with her until her back hit the wall. Megan gasped softly as Helena's mouth found hers again, pressing her gently but firmly against the surface. Their bodies aligned in a way that made Megan's heart pound. Every nerve lit up like a firework. Helena's hands were at her hips, steady, grounding. Megan let herself melt into it, her fingers tangled in Helena's hair, the kiss speaking all the things they couldn't quite say out loud. When they finally pulled apart, breathing hard, Helena kept her forehead pressed to Megan's for a beat. "I don't know what this is," she murmured, "but I want to know." Megan closed her eyes, heart racing. "Me too." Helena stepped back, her hands lingering for a second before she moved toward the kitchen again, like she needed distance to breathe. Megan stood where she was, back still against the wall, lips tingling, pulse racing. She knew everything had changed again, and there was no going back this time. Megan had always considered herself decent at keeping secrets. She could sit through an entire team meeting while knowing someone's boyfriend was cheating and not even flinch. She once held back a spoiler for an entire week after binge-watching a series ahead of her friend group. She had restraint. She had composure. But walking into the Catalyst Media office on Monday morning, the memory of Helena's lips still tingling on hers, her body still buzzing from being pressed against the CEO's living room wall like a scene out of a forbidden romance novel, Megan realized that her poker face had an expiration date. Because everything had changed, and none of it showed on Helena's face. She was back to full executive armor, sleek bun, sharp blazer, cool detachment. She barely glanced at Megan during the morning huddle, didn't linger in the hallway, didn't crack the smallest smile. If someone had watched them side by side, they'd think Helena didn't even know Megan. And Megan, for her part, wasn't sure if she wanted to scream or slow clap. By lunchtime, She had officially convinced herself that she'd hallucinated everything over a glass of overpriced Pinot. But just before 1 p.m., her phone buzzed. One message. That thing you do with your thumb when you're nervous? You've been doing it all morning. Want to talk later? My office. 6 p.m. Megan smiled, then rolled her eyes, then smiled again, and promptly knocked over her water bottle. The hours crawled by with criminal slowness, and by the time 6 finally arrived, she had rehearsed 3 different ways to say so about that kiss and discarded all of them. But when she reached Helena's office, the lights were off, door locked, no sign of her. Megan checked her phone. Nothing. Maybe Helena had been pulled into something. Maybe this was another test in the great corporate chess game that was now also her love life. She was halfway back to her desk when Samir waved her over. You're coming to the happy hour tonight, right? Megan blinked. Happy what? Happy hour, Samir said, holding up a flyer. Quarterly team bonding. Bar down the street. CEO approved. Megan stared at the flyer. Helena approved a happy hour? Shocking, I know. But she said something about morale being important and that she'd make an appearance. So you're coming. Megan almost declined, but then thought better of it. If Helena was going to be there, maybe she could get a read on whatever this radio silence meant. And if nothing else, she could at least drink about it. The bar was packed. Low lights, loud music, and way too many coworkers trying to pretend they were fun outside of Slack threads. Megan ordered a drink, scanned the room, and there.
Helena.
Near the back, talking to someone from accounting. She looked relaxed, less guarded, still devastating. Megan started to make her way over, trying not to overthink the way her stomach fluttered with each step. But before she could reach her, a woman slid into the seat beside Helena. Tall, brunette, confident. She laughed at something Helena said and touched her arm with the casual familiarity of someone who'd done it before. Megan froze. Watched Helena lean back, then smile politely. Watched the woman lean in. Too close. Megan took a slow sip of her drink and backed away, settling near the bar. She wasn't going to panic. It was probably nothing. Just a friend. A very touchy, beautiful, clearly interested friend. You look like you just watched your favorite character die, said a voice beside her. It was Emma, her best friend, appearing like the chaos fairy she was. And no, I haven't started season 3 yet, so don't you dare. How are you even here? Megan asked, surprised. I work in the same building. We were invited too. You really should pay more attention to your surroundings. Anyway, spill. Why do you look like you're 2 seconds away from drinking tequila from your shoe? Megan groaned. I may or may not have kissed someone I definitely shouldn't have. Twice. Emma choked.
Who?
Do I know her? Please tell me it's someone at least morally questionable. Megan glanced toward Helena, who was now gesturing toward the bar while touchy brunette lady laughed like she was auditioning for a rom-com. The new CEO. Emma blinked, then sipped her drink. You really don't do anything halfway, do you? Never have. Megan's voice was flat. Also, I think she ghosted me in the middle of the day and is now being flirted with by someone named Natalie, who looks like she models for sustainable yoga brands. Hot. Unhelpful.
Sorry.
Are we mad? Sad? Plotting? Megan sighed. Mostly confused. I mean, she kissed me like I was oxygen and she was drowning. And now she's playing it cool in public because she's your boss and you work in the same building and she probably doesn't want to risk anything until she's sure you won't destroy her career? Emma said casually. Megan blinked.
Wow.
Do you just keep that level of rationality in your purse? Only on Thursdays. Megan considered it, then looked back toward Helena, who finally was making her way toward the bar. Alone. Megan tensed. Emma nudged her.
Go. Talk to her.
Worst case, she rejects you, and you make out with someone from legal out of spite. Win-win. Megan snorted. You're terrible. I'm supportive. Megan didn't have time to respond before Helena reached her. Their eyes met. That same flicker passed between them. Recognition, memory, restraint. Hi, Helena said, voice softer than expected. Hey, Megan replied. I waited in your office. I got pulled into a board call, lost track of time, and then came here with Natalie. Old friend. Very flirty. Very not my type. Megan raised a brow. Really? Because she seems very into your type. Helena stepped closer. I was looking for you. Megan's pulse skipped. You found me. They stood like that for a moment, the noise of the bar fading into the background. Then Helena exhaled. I'm trying to do this the right way. I'm trying not to cross lines. You already did, Megan whispered. And so did I. So maybe the line is gone now. Helena looked at her like she was trying not to fall. I don't want to ruin this. Then don't, Megan said simply. Just don't stop whatever it is we're doing. Helena's gaze dropped to Megan's mouth. You make everything so complicated. And yet, Megan replied, leaning in slightly, you're still here. I really shouldn't, but you really want to. Helena said nothing, but her eyes said everything. Then, with a tiny shake of her head, resigned, breathless, cursing herself, she stepped even closer. We should leave before someone sees. Your place or mine? Megan asked just to be a menace. Mine, Helena said. It's closer. And I have wine. You do know how to seduce a girl. I'm trying not to. You're doing a terrible job. Helena didn't argue. She just took Megan's hand. And the moment they slipped out into the cold, dark street, Megan felt it again, that pull. That impossible, inconvenient, unstoppable pull. Helena's apartment was cleaner than any human space had a right to be. Not staged or sterile, just effortlessly curated. Like every book had been deliberately placed, every throw pillow selected with an algorithm trained on aesthetics and emotional repression. Megan stepped inside slowly, watching Helena lock the door behind them with the same precision she used to run meetings. Still feels illegal, Megan muttered, shrugging off her coat. Coming home with my boss. Even if we kissed before I knew your name. And again after I knew too much. Helena didn't answer right away. She took Megan's coat, hung it on the rack like it was delicate, and walked to the kitchen with a focused calm that screamed distraction. I wasn't lying about the wine, she called over her shoulder. I have a Malbec you'll like. Full-bodied, smooth, a little dramatic. Seemed appropriate. So just like me, Megan quipped, leaning against the counter. Except I'm more spicy than smooth. Helena opened the bottle with practiced ease. And definitely dramatic. Wow, Megan said, mock-offended. You're really easing into this whole flirting thing now, huh? I'm not flirting, Helena replied, pouring the wine into 2 glasses. I'm stating observable facts. And observing me very closely, apparently. Helena handed her a glass, fingers brushing. Hard not to. That shut Megan up for a second. She took a slow sip, trying to ignore the heat crawling up her neck. The wine was good. Too good. She hated how everything about Helena's life seemed so precise. Megan's own apartment looked like a woman in a creative spiral had fought a pile of laundry and lost. You always like this? Megan asked. Calm, controlled, perfectly pressed? Yes, Helena said. It's a survival mechanism. Megan tilted her head. And what, exactly, are you surviving? Helena met her gaze. Expectations. Image. A family that thinks leadership is only valid if it looks and sounds like a man. A career that demands twice the restraint just because I wear heels and eyeliner. Megan blinked. She hadn't expected that. Helena walked toward the living room, glass in hand, and sat on the sofa. I didn't get here by being emotional or soft, or by letting myself want things that could jeopardize everything. Megan followed, settling beside her. And yet here I am. Yes, Helena said softly. Here you are. Silence settled between them, not heavy, just full. Megan set her glass down and turned to face her fully. You know what I think? I think you're scared. Helena raised a brow. And you're not. Oh, I'm terrified, Megan said cheerfully. But I've made peace with the chaos. You, on the other hand, are trying to schedule our attraction like a quarterly report. Helena almost smiled. It's not just attraction. The words landed between them like a dropped match. Megan swallowed. What is it then? Helena didn't answer. Instead, she reached up slowly, brushing Megan's cheek with the back of her fingers. Megan leaned into the touch without thinking. And then, no more space, no more pretense. Helena kissed her again. Slower this time. Deep, deliberate, like a confession. Megan responded with equal weight, shifting closer, her hand finding Helena's waist, then her neck. They moved together like they'd done this 100 times, like every wall that had kept them apart was quietly crumbling. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Helena rested her forehead against Megan's. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, Megan whispered. So, let's just do it badly. Together. Helena laughed softly. I don't do things badly. Oh, trust me, you do repression very well. Helena pulled back, eyes full of something softer now. You always this irritating when someone's trying to kiss you? Only when I like them. Another long pause. Then Helena leaned in again, this time letting the kiss last longer, deeper, like she didn't care if time stopped. Megan melted into it. Into her. Later, they lay on the sofa, still fully dressed, but tangled in a way that felt oddly intimate, legs overlapping, Helena's hand tracing lazy patterns on Megan's arm, Megan resting her head against Helena's shoulder. This is dangerous, Helena said quietly. I know, and we're going to get caught. Probably. And still, Megan smiled. Still. For a moment, everything was calm. No tension. No hierarchy. Just warmth. Connection. The next morning, Megan woke up to coffee already brewed and a quiet note on the counter. Had to run to a call. Stay as long as you want.
H.
She made herself toast she didn't finish, drank coffee that tasted like secrets, and left the apartment with a strange ache in her chest. Like something real had started, and she wasn't sure how to protect it yet. By the time she got to the office, things were back in motion. Campaign deadlines. Meetings. A surprise announcement that Catalyst Media would be pitching for a new national client, one that could redefine their public image. A big deal. A massive deal. Megan barely had time to drop her bag before Samir waved her into a meeting. Helena was already there.
Distant. Composed.
Megan tried not to flinch. This account, Helena began, will be our most high-profile project this year, and I've decided to restructure the creative leadership on it. Megan blinked. Restructure? That wasn't. I'll be working more directly with another division to manage upper-level strategy, Helena continued. Megan, you'll be leading the internal creative team on this. Entirely. From concept to execution. Megan froze. That wasn't a promotion. That was distance. Strategic distance. You trust me with that? She asked carefully. Helena's gaze met hers. I do. Megan smiled.
Tightly.
Then I won't let you down. But her stomach was in knots. Because she knew what this was. A way to protect them both. Professional separation. No suspicion. No risk. And just like that, the warmth of the night before felt farther away than ever. Megan had never been great at playing cool. She could fake it, sure. She'd perfected the art of the casual eye roll, the half smirk, the sarcastic remark designed to deflect emotion like it was radioactive. But when something truly bothered her, it lived under her skin like static, humming constantly, demanding attention. And for the past week, that hum had a name. Helena Morrison. Since the announcement of the new campaign structure, Megan had thrown herself into the project with the kind of fervor usually reserved for cult leaders and caffeine addicts. She was everywhere, creative briefings, client meetings, late-night strategy sessions with the copy team. Her designs were tight, her pitches sharper than ever, and the team was responding to her leadership like she'd been born for it. But none of it mattered. Not really. Because every time she turned a corner and didn't see Helena, or opened her inbox and didn't find her name, Megan felt the sting of absence like a bruise she couldn't stop pressing. They hadn't spoken outside of formal updates since that night at Helena's apartment. No more messages. No shared smirks across meeting rooms. Just polite silence. Strategic avoidance. professional boundaries, tightly enforced. It was driving her absolutely insane. You look like you're on the verge of starting a podcast called My Boss Broke My Heart, and all I got was this PowerPoint, Emma said over lunch on Wednesday, sipping from her ridiculous glittery cup. Megan groaned, pushing salad around on her plate. I'm fine. You're wearing all black and listening to Lana Del Rey during your lunch break. You're not fine. You're cinematic. She promoted me. She distanced you. Megan winced. Same thing. Not when she did it to protect herself from catching feelings and burning the entire company to the ground in a sapphic scandal. Megan blinked. That's oddly specific. Emma shrugged. I read a lot of fanfiction. Still, Megan couldn't shake the sense that Helena's absence was intentional. Not out of malice, but fear. Preservation. But if Helena thought a little corporate reshuffling was enough to make her forget what they had started to build, she was sorely underestimating just how stubborn Megan could be. The breaking point came late Thursday night. The team had just wrapped a 12-hour sprint finalizing campaign assets, and Megan was the last to leave the office, headphones in, playlist blasting angry women with guitars. She was passing Helena's office when she saw it, light on. Door cracked. And for a split second, she saw her. Alone. Staring out the window. Shoulders tense. Megan hesitated. She almost knocked. Almost walked in.
Almost said something.
But then Helena turned, caught her eyes through the gap, and looked away. Not cold. Not cruel. Just resigned. Like she couldn't risk what might happen if Megan walked through that door. So Megan kept walking. The next morning, she got a message from Samir. Client wants final creative review in person. You'll need to fly out to Boston this weekend. Solo trip. Last minute, sorry. Megan rolled her eyes, but she agreed. At least it would be a change of scenery. She didn't expect to find Helena already at the airport, waiting at the gate, reading a book like She Hadn't Shattered Megan's Brain with a Single Kiss 2 weeks ago and then disappeared into a fog of professionalism. Megan stopped in front of her, arms crossed. You're coming? Helena looked up calm. The client is a former contact. I'll be leading the final pitch. You're leading creative. It's a joint presentation. Of course it is. Megan. No, it's fine. I love surprise trips with emotionally unavailable women. It's my favorite genre of trauma. Helena closed her book. Do you want to be angry or do you want to talk? Why can't I do both? Helena sighed. This wasn't supposed to be complicated. Megan dropped into the seat beside her. Then you probably shouldn't have kissed me like you were starving. Helena didn't respond right away. The plane boarded. They sat side by side in silence, pretending not to be vibrating with tension. Megan spent the flight pretending to nap, and Helena spent it pretending not to glance at her every few minutes. Boston was gray and wet and entirely unromantic, which matched Megan's mood perfectly. The meeting was scheduled for the next morning, so they checked into the hotel, separate rooms, this time, and agreed to meet for a late dinner to prep the pitch. Megan got there first. She picked a booth in the corner of the dim hotel restaurant and ordered a drink stronger than necessary. Helena arrived 10 minutes later, hair damp from the rain, blazer casually draped over one arm. You look like someone who's about to confront a cheating husband in Act 2 of a drama, Megan said as Helena slid into the booth. Helena raised an eyebrow. And you look like someone who's been trying not to cry into their risotto. I'm emotionally hydrated, thank you. They opened laptops, reviewed slides, discussed strategy, but everything felt off. Too quiet.
Too charged.
Finally, Megan snapped her laptop shut. Why are you pretending we're strangers again? Helena didn't answer. You kissed me. You touched me. You told me you didn't know how to do this, but you wanted to try. And now you act like I'm just part of your calendar. Because I'm terrified, Helena admitted, barely above a whisper. Megan froze. Helena met her gaze, eyes vulnerable for the first time in days. I'm terrified that if I keep wanting you, I'll lose everything I've built. I've spent my whole life proving I belong in rooms people said I didn't deserve to be in. I can't afford mistakes. And you think I'm a mistake? Megan asked, voice shaking. No, Helena's voice broke. I think you're the first thing that's felt real in a long time. That's what scares me. Megan stared at her. And without thinking, without planning, she reached across the table and took Helena's hand. Then let it scare you. But don't shut it out. Helena didn't pull away. They sat like that, hands tangled on the table between empty wine glasses and cold food, until the waiter awkwardly cleared his throat. Would you like dessert? Megan didn't look away from Helena. We'll take it to go. Megan stood by the hotel window in Boston, holding a tiny plastic fork and eating overpriced cheesecake out of a flimsy takeout container, like it was the only thing grounding her to earth. The lights of the city blurred behind the glass, glowing softly in the drizzle outside, but her thoughts were louder than the weather. She didn't know what was going to happen next. All she knew was that Helena Morrison had finally stopped pretending, and for the first time in weeks, Megan felt something close to hope. Helena had walked her to her room after dinner. No more distance. No more denial. Their hands had brushed once, twice, before Helena reached out and laced their fingers together like she didn't care who saw. Megan had looked up at her, breath caught halfway in her chest, and Helena had just said, "Come inside. I don't want to let go yet." That had been hours ago. No kisses. No touching beyond a careful hand on her arm, a brief brush of shoulders as they sat side by side on the bed, talking. Really talking. Helena had told her about the pressure of being the youngest woman ever appointed CEO at Catalyst. About how her marriage had crumbled long before the papers were signed. About the voice in her head that never shut up, always whispering that wanting something for herself meant risking everything she'd built. Megan had listened, and when it was her turn, she told Helena about the ex who made her feel small, about the way she sometimes sabotaged good things before they could leave her. About how, lately, she hadn't been able to tell the difference between ambition and exhaustion. When Helena finally leaned over and pressed a kiss to her shoulder, gentle, soft, something close to reverent, Megan had closed her eyes and memorized the moment like it was a secret she'd carry forever. "You're not a distraction," Helena had whispered. "You're a reminder that I'm still human." Now, as Megan watched the city slowly fall asleep, she felt Helena's presence before she heard her. Barefoot, hoodie on, hair damp from a shower. She padded across the carpet and stood beside her, quiet. Megan offered her the last bite of cheesecake. Helena accepted it wordlessly, smiling against the fork, and they stood there, side by side, two people who had finally stopped pretending. "We'll figure this out," Megan said softly. Helena nodded. "Even if we have to rewrite the rules." Especially if we have to rewrite the rules. The next morning, their return to Chicago was uneventful. Flights, small talk, coffee and silence that didn't feel strained for once. Megan left the airport with a kiss on the cheek she hadn't expected, hidden in the back seat of the car, just out of sight. Helena didn't say anything, but the look she gave before stepping out spoke volumes. Megan felt like she was carrying a secret that wasn't heavy anymore, just delicate. Like a spark she didn't want to blow out. But it didn't take long for the world to notice the shift. It started with glances. People in the office catching the way Helena's gaze lingered half a second longer than it should during a meeting. The way Megan no longer filled the silence with jokes when Helena entered the room. Then came the questions. "You and the boss getting along these days, huh?" Samir asked, eyebrows raised. "She used to ignore you like you were a printer jam." "Guess I fixed my toner," Megan replied coolly, brushing it off. But rumors moved fast in spaces where silence used to speak. And by the end of the week, Megan walked into the bathroom and overheard two women from finance whispering near the sinks. "I'm just saying, she's been acting different. Like soft." "You think it's true?" "You mean the thing with Megan? I heard someone saw them leaving that hotel in Boston at the same time." "That doesn't mean." She touched her back in the hallway yesterday. "No, yes. Like intimately." Megan didn't move. Didn't breathe. When the voices faded, she slipped into a stall and sat there for 5 full minutes, heart racing, unsure whether to laugh or cry. By Monday, it was no longer a whisper. Someone on the creative team made a joke, loud enough for her to hear. "I mean, if sleeping with the CEO gets you promoted, maybe I should flirt a little more too." Megan turned so fast the guy flinched. "Careful," she said sweetly. Flirting takes more than cheap cologne and daddy issues. The team laughed. He went pale. But later, in the elevator, Megan felt it again, that simmer under the surface. People looking. People wondering. People talking. She hated it. Not the fact that people suspected. Not even the whispers. What she hated was the insinuation that what was happening between her and Helena was strategic. That it was calculated. That it wasn't real. She didn't care what they thought of her. But she cared what it did to Helena. That afternoon, Helena called her into her office. Megan walked in, jaw tight, expecting more space, more silence. Instead, Helena stood at the window, arms crossed, looking every bit the composed executive, but Megan knew her well enough now to see the storm behind the stillness. It started, Helena said without turning. Megan nodded. I know. They're talking. Let them. It's going to get worse. I don't care. Helena finally turned. I do. Megan blinked. What are you saying? Helena stepped forward. I'm saying we need to handle this.
Now.
Before it spirals. Before it gets ugly. Because I will not let anyone use this against you. Megan frowned. You think this makes me look weak? No, Helena said, firm. I think it makes you look powerful, which is exactly why people will try to tear you down. And me with you. Megan looked at her for a long time. Then say it's real. Say this isn't just some distraction or mistake you're trying to manage. Helena moved closer, eyes locked on hers. It's real. Then don't push me away. I'm not. You were. I was scared. And now? Now I'm angry, Helena admitted. Because we finally found something real and people will turn it into something dirty. Megan stepped into her space, close enough to feel the heat between them rise again. Then let them talk. But don't let them decide for us. Helena exhaled, visibly shaken. We'll need to be careful. Discreet. Professional. Oh, please. Have you met me? Helena smiled despite herself. Unfortunately. Megan grinned. Then let me be loud where it matters and smart where it counts. Helena reached for her hand. Squeezed it. We're doing this. We already are. Catalyst Media was in slow-motion combustion. Not the dramatic kind with firings or leaked scandals, but the quieter version, the lingering glances, the too long silences, the slight upticks in whispers when Megan walked by with her head held high and a smile she'd weaponized into armor. Since the rumors about her and Helena had caught fire, the office felt different. Colder in the corners, sharper at the edges. Megan noticed the change the way some people notice pressure before a storm. It was in the air. To the outside world, she was thriving. She was spearheading the company's biggest campaign, leading her team with sharp focus and confident flair. Clients loved her. Her team respected her. But none of it drowned out the undertone, the one that hissed sleeping your way to the top behind fake smiles and coffee runs. Helena wasn't untouched by it either. She kept her composure like always, but Megan could see it. The slight tension in her shoulders, the longer pauses before meetings, the flicker of exhaustion behind her eyes when no one else was looking. And when Helena quietly mentioned that 2 board members had requested a casual meeting to discuss professional boundaries and internal perception, Megan knew the whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were strategy. She's not accusing us of anything, Helena said, standing beside her car in the parking garage, the concrete walls around them echoing her restraint. But they want to make sure there are no distractions at the top. Megan rolled her eyes. Of course. Because God forbid 2 women work hard and also have feelings. Scandalous. Helena cracked a tight smile. You use humor as a defense mechanism. And you disappear as yours. Helena looked away. Megan didn't push. The distance between them wasn't just emotional anymore, it was political. And with Catalyst Forward approaching, the company's biggest internal event of the year, an evening of speeches, networking, and employee recognition, Megan knew it would be a minefield. The night arrived. Megan wore a sleek black jumpsuit and red lipstick sharp enough to wound. Her heels hurt and her nerves buzzed, but her walk was solid, her smile confident. She stepped into the event hall like she owned the floor, even as her pulse quickened the moment she saw Helena. Helena stood across the room in a storm gray velvet dress, her hair swept up, all elegance and quiet control. They didn't speak. They didn't wave. But their eyes met, and Megan felt it. Like lightning, like everything unsaid tightening in the air. The night unfolded in waves. Polite conversations. Fake laughter. People stopping just short of open speculation. Megan overheard her name more than once and made a sport of casually interrupting conversations that got too quiet when she passed. Then came the final presentation, company awards. Helena took the stage, composed as ever, delivering her remarks with perfect cadence. Until the last announcement. Creative Leadership of the Year, she said, for innovation, resilience, and exemplary execution.
A pause.
Megan Hayes. Applause.
Loud.
Megan rose, walking toward the stage as her name echoed through the room. But every step felt heavier than it should have. She didn't feel victorious. She felt exposed. Helena handed her the Crystal Award. For a moment, their hands touched. A second too long. Just long enough. Thank you, Megan said, but it wasn't just about the award. She turned to the microphone. She hadn't planned a speech. But something inside her snapped into clarity. I thought about writing something inspirational, Megan began, voice smooth. But after this year, I figured I'd be honest instead. A few chuckles. I've worked hard, really hard. I've stayed late, skipped weekends, pushed myself past burnout to deliver results. And I've loved every moment of it because I believe in what we do. I believe in the people I work with. She looked out over the crowd. But I've also heard the whispers, the assumptions, that success only comes with strings, that women don't rise, they're lifted. A hush fell over the room. So, let me clarify something, Megan continued. Everything I've achieved, I've earned. Through work, talent, and a lot of coffee. If anyone still doubts that, I'll gladly show you the receipts. Date stamped. Color-coded. Bullet-pointed. Laughter again. Tense.
Real.
She smiled. And if I happen to care about someone who works in this building, someone brilliant, intimidating, and very annoyingly good at keeping secrets, that has nothing to do with how I do my job. But it has everything to do with how I see my future. That landed.
Hard.
She handed the mic back and stepped off the stage. People clapped, some enthusiastic, some cautious. But Megan didn't care. Because as she made her way through the crowd, people stepped aside. For the first time, not out of suspicion, out of respect, Helena found her near the back wall.
Calm. Composed.
But her eyes were full of fire. That was brave, Helena said softly. No, Megan replied. That was overdue. Helena hesitated, then leaned in, close enough to whisper, just loud enough to be noticed. You know this will make things harder. Megan nodded, and I'd do it again. A pause. Then Helena reached out, gently, brushing her lips just barely against Megan's cheek. A kiss that was too soft to be scandalous, but too intimate to be ignored. It was a message, not just to Megan, to everyone. I'm done pretending this doesn't matter, Helena murmured. Megan smiled. Then don't disappear. Not this time. And as they stood together in that sea of suits, champagne, and curated smiles, they knew the real challenge was only beginning. But for the first time, they were facing it side by side. It didn't take long. By 9:14 a.m. the next morning, Helena's assistant had already blocked off her entire calendar with the words, "Urgent executive session." Megan's phone buzzed with 3 messages before she'd even taken a sip of her coffee. One from Samir. Are you okay? HR is buzzing. One from Emma. You basically came out with a mic drop. Iconic. Slightly terrifying. Need details. And one from Helena. We need to talk.
Now.
Megan stared at the last one for a long moment, then calmly slid her phone into her bag and walked to the office like nothing had happened. But everything had. Her speech at the event had done exactly what it was meant to do. Pierce the veil.
There were no more maybes now.
No deniability. She had stood on a stage and, without saying Helena's name, made it very clear where her heart and her integrity stood. And Helena? Helena had kissed her cheek in front of half the leadership team. Subtle, but loud enough. She found Helena waiting in her office, alone, framed by floor-to-ceiling windows that made her look like a still from a corporate drama. She didn't look furious. She looked exhausted. And something else. Resigned. Shut the door, Helena said without looking up. Megan did. They want answers, Helena said flatly. The board. HR legal. Let me guess. They want to know if I'm your mistress or your mistake. They want to know if I've compromised the company. Or if you've gained preferential treatment. Oh, so just light misogyny with a dash of internalized panic. Helena finally looked at her. This isn't a joke, Megan. It's always been a joke, Helena. Just not when we were telling. Silence. Megan stepped forward, her voice softer now. What do they want us to do? Helena hesitated. They've suggested I take a temporary leave. Step back from direct oversight while an internal review is conducted. Megan blinked. You're stepping down? Temporarily. To protect me? To protect both of us. The work. The company. So, I speak my truth and you disappear? I'm trying to keep this from exploding. It's already exploded, Helena. Her name hit the air like a challenge. Helena stood, finally, and crossed the room. You're not the one under review. But I am the one who's still here. Alone. Facing every whisper. Every look. Every question. Megan shook her head. You think stepping down makes it easier for me? I think it gives us time to figure out what we are without the walls closing in. And what if the walls never stop? Then we fight harder. Megan exhaled slowly. What are we, Helena? Helena didn't answer immediately. She walked to the window, back to Megan, arms crossed as if trying to hold herself together. You're the only thing in my life I didn't plan for, she said. And the only thing I'm not willing to lose. Megan felt her chest tighten. Then don't ask me to keep pretending. I'm not your scandal. I'm not your secret. You're not. Helena turned back to her. You're the reason I finally feel like I can breathe again. And that terrifies me. Me too. For a moment, neither moved. Then Helena crossed the distance between them and stopped just in front of her. If I step back, it's not running. It's strategy. Let them do their investigation. Let them talk. But I won't be in a position where they can say I used my power to influence yours. You didn't, Megan said fiercely.
No.
But I need it to be undeniable. For your sake. For ours. And what happens next? We keep going. Quietly. Carefully. But no more pretending. No more distance. Megan searched her eyes, looking for cracks. There were none. Just calm determination. And maybe, finally, a little hope. Okay, she whispered. But if anyone makes another comment about me getting a promotion in exchange for kisses, I swear I'm leaking our entire Slack history. Helena actually laughed, and it broke the tension just enough for Megan to feel like maybe, just maybe, they'd survive this. The week that followed was a blur. Helena officially announced her leave in a carefully worded internal memo, citing transitional oversight and strategic restructuring. The whispers didn't stop, but they changed tone, less venom, more curiosity. Megan kept leading the campaign like her life depended on it, and in a way, it did. Every decision, every presentation, every deliverable was her answer to the question no one dared ask out loud. Did she earn this? And with every win, the doubt chipped away. Emma brought her matcha and gossip. Samir stopped acting like he was walking on eggshells. Even the legal team began to realize that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a crisis. It was just two people who hadn't expected to collide. One night, as Megan left the office late, she saw a familiar figure leaning against her car. Helena. Casual clothes. Soft smile. A bottle of wine in one hand and her coat draped over the other. Figured we could debrief, Helena said. Figured you missed me, Megan replied. Always. They drove to Helena's apartment, said nothing until the door clicked shut behind them, and then, finally, exhaled. They'll come around, Helena murmured, pressing her forehead against Megan's. And if they don't, then we'll show them what it looks like when a CEO and a creative lead break the rules and still win. Megan kissed her then.
Slow. Solid.
No more rush. No more hiding. Just presence. Just them. And in that moment, the chaos faded. The fear, the pressure, the judgment, it all quieted beneath the truth they'd finally stopped running from. Megan had never felt this exposed. Not even during her first major pitch. Not even that time the entire office saw her accidentally trip over a light stand and take out a banner that said "Inspiration starts here." No, this was different. This was pressure wrapped in expectation, tied with the invisible ribbon of "Prove It." With Helena officially on leave, the weight of Catalyst Media's most high-profile campaign had settled fully onto Megan's shoulders. She wore it well, or, at least, she made it look like she did. On the surface, she was calm, composed, laser-focused. In reality, she hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night all week. Her caffeine intake could have fueled a rocket launch, and her browser history was 90% panic searches, like how to avoid public humiliation in front of high-profile clients. The final presentation was in 3 days. It wasn't just a big pitch, it was the pitch. National exposure. A budget that could make or break Catalyst's quarter. The client, a legacy media brand looking to completely rebrand itself for a younger audience, had come with impossible expectations and an even more impossible approval board. Megan had fine-tuned every slide, every color, every word. Her team had rallied behind her. They believed in her. She just had to believe in herself. But then, of course, the universe intervened. 2 days before the pitch, the head of the client's creative board sent an email with a few notes that read more like a dismantling of their entire approach. Words like too experimental, misaligned tone, and inconsistent messaging jumped off the screen like insults. Megan sat frozen in the conference room, the email glowing on the screen like a threat. Around her, the team waited for her reaction. "Okay," she said finally. "We pivot." "Pivot how?" someone asked. "We've built this entire campaign around this concept." Megan stared at the screen, heartbeat thudding. "We take the core and we reframe it. We keep the integrity, but we adjust the shell. In 48 hours. That's why God invented caffeine and existential panic." It was a joke, but barely. The next 36 hours were a blur of chaos and controlled desperation. Megan barely left the office. Her team rotated in shifts. She rewrote every script, reimagined every transition. But it wasn't just exhaustion gnawing at her, it was the quiet absence of Helena. They texted, but it wasn't the same. Helena was respecting the distance, honoring the decision they'd made. Megan understood. But she missed her. Missed the way Helena's presence had always centered her, steadied her. She missed the quiet confidence in Helena's voice that made everyone listen. Most of all, she missed knowing that if she fell, someone was there to catch her. The night before the presentation, Megan stood alone in the office, staring at the final version of the pitch deck on the screen. Her reflection in the glass looked like a woman holding everything together with paper clips and sheer willpower. Her phone buzzed. One message. From Helena. "I know you're not going to sleep tonight, but you've already won. No matter what happens tomorrow, this was yours. Proud doesn't begin to cover it." Megan swallowed hard. She typed back. "Wish you were here." A pause. Then another message. "Open your front door." Megan blinked. She wasn't even home. But she looked up. Through the glass wall of the office, down the hallway. There. Helena. Standing just past reception, holding 2 coffees and the softest expression Megan had ever seen on her face. Megan bolted. They met halfway down the hall. Helena didn't say anything at first, just held out the coffee. "You looked like you needed this." Megan took it, fingers brushing. "I thought you were staying away for optics." "I was. And now I'm here for you, not for them." Megan's chest tightened. "I don't know if I'm going to pull this off." Helena stepped closer.
You already did.
"You built something from scratch. You made people believe." You got everyone to follow you, not because of me. Because of you. But what if I fail? Then I'll still be here. The next morning came faster than Megan wanted. The client was early. The room was packed. Everyone was watching her. And when she stood at the front, clicking through the first slide, she felt something strange. Not fear. Not panic. Focus. It was like everything narrowed, every doubt burned off by the heat of the moment. She told a story. Not just about the product or the brand or the audience, but about belief.
About voice. About risk.
She spoke with the confidence of someone who had lived every inch of the journey. She didn't mention Helena, but she didn't have to. She was there in the subtext, in the courage, in the clarity. The presentation ended. There was silence. Then applause. Real applause. The kind that didn't feel forced. Later, the client's lead strategist pulled her aside. That was the most compelling pitch we've seen in 5 years. Megan smiled, almost too tired to process it. Does that mean we got it? The woman grinned. We'll be in touch. But if I were you, I'd start hiring. Back at the office, Megan collapsed into her chair, surrounded by her team.
Cheers.
Confetti from someone's emergency celebration drawer. Laughter. And then, in the middle of it all, Helena, appearing in the doorway like the sun after a storm. Megan crossed the room without hesitation. No hesitation. No fear. And when Helena opened her arms, Megan stepped into them like it was the most natural thing in the world. The office quieted, but no one looked away. They weren't hiding anymore. You did it, Helena whispered.
We did, Megan replied.
But mostly me. Helena laughed.
Yes.
Mostly you. They stayed like that for a few seconds too long. But no one said a word. No more whispers. No more pretending. Just pride. Just presence. Just everything Megan had fought for, finally real. It had been 3 weeks since Megan's pitch landed like a meteor and reset the gravitational pull of Catalyst Media. 3 weeks since the client signed the biggest contract the company had secured in 5 years. 3 weeks since Megan stood in front of a conference room full of skeptics and made every single one of them believe.
And now?
She was everywhere. Boardroom meetings. Creative strategy sessions. Internal training presentations where junior employees hung on her every word like she was a cult leader with good hair and great metaphors. People stopped whispering. They started listening. Even the ones who'd once doubted her began quoting her insights in team chats and copying her slide transitions like they were sacred. It should have felt like victory. And it did. Mostly. But victory was complicated when it came wrapped in silence from the people who mattered most. Helena was still on leave. Officially. Unofficially, she was back in the building. Not every day. Not with the same presence as before. But she hovered like a phantom in well-tailored blazers, stepping quietly into meetings when no one expected her, reviewing progress from behind the scenes. And with every passing day, Megan felt something creeping in behind all the praise and attention, uncertainty. Because people could celebrate her all they wanted, but if Helena's return to power meant the end of everything they'd begun, then what had any of it been for? She found out the answer on a Thursday morning. The calendar notification popped up innocently. Meeting, Executive Review Committee, 10 a.m., boardroom. Megan's first reaction was irritation. Her second was suspicion. When she entered the boardroom, she knew she'd been right to worry. 6 people sat around the table. 2 from HR. 3 senior board members. And Helena, back in full CEO form, immaculate in slate gray, expression unreadable. Megan's spine straightened instinctively. Have a seat, Megan, one of the board members said.
Calm. Too calm.
Megan sat,
Crossed her legs.
waited. First, the man said, we want to congratulate you. The campaign exceeded all expectations. You've made an impression. Thank you, she said slowly. I'm proud of the team. You're being considered for a new role, another added. VP of Brand Strategy. Effective immediately, should you accept. Megan blinked.
She paused.
That's a big leap. It's earned, Helena said, voice smooth. Your leadership was exceptional. We want to give you the authority to keep building on that momentum. But there's a condition, one of the HR reps said, folding her hands. Due to the concerns previously raised about professional boundaries, the board has decided that it would be in the company's best interest if, moving forward, there is no ongoing personal relationship between you and Helena. Megan felt like she'd been slapped. She turned slowly toward Helena, but Helena wasn't looking at her. She was staring straight ahead, jaw tight, hands folded on the table. "Let me get this straight," Megan said, carefully. "You're offering me a promotion, but only if I stop seeing the person who believed in me before anyone else did." "We're not interfering in your personal life," the board member said quickly. "We're just acknowledging that appearances matter, that the leadership team has to remain above reproach. So, you're telling me I can have the title, the salary, the power, as long as I play pretend?" Silence. Megan stood. Slowly. "No, Megan. You don't get to package misogyny as policy and expect me to thank you for it."
Her voice was calm.
Sharper than glass. "I'm not going to apologize for falling for someone brilliant, someone brave, someone who taught me that leadership isn't about playing by the rules. It's about knowing when the rules are broken." She looked straight at Helena. "And I'm not going to accept a job that comes with the condition of erasing the one thing that made this hell of a year worth surviving." For a moment, no one moved. Megan turned to leave. But Helena stood. "Wait." Megan froze. Helena's voice didn't shake. "She's right." All heads turned. Helena looked at the board members, fire in her eyes. "If you want her to lead, let her lead. Don't tie her brilliance to my name. She's not here because of me. She's here in spite of everything I did to hold her at arm's length. Helena, I resign." The room exploded. Protests. Confusion. But Helena didn't flinch. She looked at Megan, finally meeting her eyes. "I'm not going to let them force you to choose. If someone has to step down so this company can keep growing, it should be me." Megan's breath caught. "You can't. I can. And I want to. Because I don't want to lead a company where love is treated like a liability." Later, in the quiet of Helena's office, now stripped bare, files boxed, nameplate gone, Megan stood in front of her, arms crossed, heart racing. "That was the most reckless thing I've ever seen you do." Helena looked at her. "Do you hate me for it?" "No," Megan whispered. "I think I love you more for it." Helena reached for her hand. "I never wanted to be a CEO more than I wanted to be yours." Megan pulled her close. "Then come home with me." Helena smiled. "Every day, if you'll have me." And with that, the power games, the pressure, the politics, none of it mattered. They walked out of that office hand in hand, no titles, no secrets. Just the start of something real. It was snowing. Not a blizzard, not dramatic, just that quiet, glittering kind of snow that felt more like a scene than weather. The kind of snow that made everything look softer, slower, like the world had decided to hush for a moment. Megan stood on the rooftop of Helena's apartment building, wrapped in a long camel coat and holding 2 champagne flutes in one hand and a sparkler in the other. Below them, the lights of Chicago shimmered against the river, windows glowing warm with celebration. It was New Year's Eve again.
A year.
Exactly a year since she'd kissed a stranger at midnight and her world had tipped off its axis in the best possible way. A year since she'd tasted champagne and trouble and hadn't been able to forget the feel of lips against hers, the mystery, the magnetism. A year since she'd kissed Helena Morrison without knowing her name, and now she couldn't imagine a day without it. "You're going to set your hair on fire with that thing," Helena said behind her, stepping out onto the rooftop, bundled in a scarf and looking frustratingly perfect. Megan turned, sparklers still lit. "If I go out festive." Helena took the champagne flutes from her hand, holding one out. "To endings." Megan raised an eyebrow. "You're starting with endings?" Helena smiled. "To endings that led to better beginnings." They clinked, sipped, stood in silence for a moment, watching the skyline. "So," Megan said after a beat, her voice casual but warm, "how does it feel not being a CEO?" Helena let out a soft laugh. "Weird." "Quiet." My inbox is at 0 and I'm suspicious. Are you surviving the horror of sleeping in and not being asked to solve crises every morning? Barely. I wake up and stare at the ceiling like I'm forgetting a meeting. I could throw coffee at you and yell about a deliverable if it makes you feel better. Helena smirked. You already do that, but with sarcasm. It's my love language. Megan leaned into her slightly, brushing their shoulders together. You regret it? Helena didn't answer immediately. She took a long sip of champagne, then turned to face her. Not for a second. I lost the title. I gained this. This being rooftop frostbite and questionable champagne? This being the woman who reminds me how good it feels to want something for no other reason than love. Megan's throat tightened. She tilted her head. I thought you hated romantic cliches. I used to. Then one kissed me at midnight and ruined me. Megan bit back a smile. I really did wreck your life. You rebuilt it better. They stood like that for a moment. The snow fell softer now. The city below waited. You never told me what you're planning next, Megan said quietly. Career-wise. Post-CO life. Helena shrugged. I'm consulting a little. But mostly I'm trying to see what it feels like to choose something that isn't always safe. I want to do work I care about.
Right.
Mentor. Breathe. She looked at Megan. Be with you. Megan stepped closer. That last one better be full-time. Benefits and all, Helena replied, eyes twinkling. Down below, they could hear the faint sound of people counting. 10. Megan looked at her. You know what's weird? We haven't had a proper midnight kiss since that first one. We've kissed at all hours. But not the kiss. Not the moment. It started everything. Helena leaned in. Then maybe it's time we write the sequel. 987. Megan's heart picked up speed. There were no accidents now. No strangers. Just her and the woman she fell for in a heartbeat and learned to love in 1,000 tiny ways. 6-5. Helena touched her face, thumb brushing her cheek, eyes locked on hers. 4-3. Megan smiled. No more running. Never again. 2-1. And then, like the universe had been waiting an entire year for them to get it right, their lips met. This kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't born of mystery. It was everything that had come after. It was every late night and every hard decision. Every argument and every apology. Every office hallway charged with tension. Every elevator look. Every soft good morning text and every slow Sunday curled together in a silence that felt like home. It was knowing. It was real. And it didn't end at midnight. It deepened. Lingered.
Promised.
When they finally pulled back, Megan was smiling too wide to pretend otherwise. So, she said softly, does this count as our official anniversary? Helena nodded, just as serious. It counts as everything. And as the fireworks lit the sky and cheers echoed into the winter air, they held hands on the rooftop, not as strangers, not as boss and employee, not as something forbidden, but as two women who had chosen each other, over and over again, through everything. The countdown was over, but their story had only just begun. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support helps me keep creating these love stories and bringing them to life for you. See you in the next video.